Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for that introduction. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Great. Great, thank you. And so we are very excited to be today. Thank you for the invitation. And so it was this July, past July, my husband and I were in New York visiting. And we were very lucky because Karen and John were also there visiting their daughters. And so we got together for breakfast. And we were talking about the paper and all the process. And Karen has this great idea. Say, guys, you have to give the talk at TCD. And so Marcela and I accepted. And so here we are. So this is the first time actually giving a talk with someone that is located in another country virtually and sharing the same screen. So let's see how this works.
Yeah, thank you, Cristina. I'm very excited to be there, at least virtually. It's so great to see everyone. So yeah, we wanted to share a little bit about the process more than the article itself. And I would like to tell you a little bit about what we learned about the publishing process and what worked for us that may be useful for students. So Cristina will start and then I will jump in. Cristina.
Thank you, Marcela. So we divided this presentation in 4 sections. So we will start talking about how it all started, then how we try to spread the word to the world. Then we will talk a little bit about the lessons learned, and we will just briefly talk about the manuscript. So here in this picture, you can see Marcela and I back in 2015, I believe. Next. And so it all started, we were members of the Southern Cone Conservation Leadership Initiative. This initiative was created by Dr. Lynn Branch. She's a professor at TCD as well as WEC. And we were students for different countries, Argentina, Chile, Paraguay, and Uruguay, with different backgrounds. And so we belong to different labs. The mission of the initiative was to train leaders to conserve biodiversity, manage natural resources, and maintain ecological services. Within this initiative, we have the working group. And we have our own mission. Our own mission was to bridge the gap between science and practice for the conservation of nature in the Southern Cone. And so we were a very active group. We have a lot of experience organizing and facilitating activities, workshops, mostly thanks to the TCD Working Group grant. And thinking on the moment that we will leave UF and US, we were thinking about creating this, and we created the Society for Conservation Biology chapter as a way to continue interacting and working towards the conservation of the Southern Cone. And so, well, here in this slide, you can see on the top left, Dr. Lynn Branch, and on the top right, Antonieta, who was another member of the Southern Cone, and then, well, Marcela and I. And so one day, Lynn says, girls, I have these funds, I have available funds to do a workshop on gender. And so this was under the Global Women's Scholar Network project that was funded by the US National Science Foundation. And so because we were very excited and very active, and so we say, yes, we accept the challenge, right? And so then we invited Karen and John to join us in this project. And also Constanza. Constanza was a student of Karen. She was at her lab at the moment. And so we all got together to organize the first workshop. So we have something in clear. It was on gender. And we wanted to do it in Latin America because, well, we were the Southern Cone of South America. And so we had a focus on Latin America. And so we have the first workshop in March 2015 in Gainesville, Florida. It was held on Austin Carey, the facility of the Forestry Department. And at the same time, TCD was holding a conference called Envision a Sustainable Tropics. And so we make our event coincide with this conference, because even though we have funds, we didn't have enough money to pay the tickets for speakers from Latin America and bring them to the US, pay the tickets, hotel, and other expenditures. And so we kind of partnered with this event. And so we will have TCD alumni that were coming from Latin America to this event. And so we, because of the venue capacity, we only have 30 participants from 10 countries. And so we did our first workshop in women's working in conservation in Latin America. That was the focus. We did a 2 days event. Can you, yeah, there, 2 days, no, go back, there. So we have a 2 days event. So the first picture is the workshop itself, and the second one, we took the participants to Devil's Mill Hopper because one of the participants of the workshop was a geologist who offered a free guided tour. And so it was, it was convenient. Next. And so in this first workshop, mostly of the agenda and the activities reply in the following workshops. So we started the workshop with icebreaker activities. We will have 4 invited speakers who will share their experiences in a storytelling kind of format. We will also have group activities, open discussions. We will use all the facilitation skills that we learned in John's class. And so we also had to create an application form because of venue capacity, and there was a huge demand. And so here I want to show you a timeline of how the different years that all the workshops happened. And so the first workshop was actually very successful and highlighted the need that all the participants have for more events like this, like a place where they will feel safe and they will share their experiences and hear from other person, their situation, their opportunities, their challenges, feel that they weren't alone. And so we have a huge demand from participants, particularly from TCD alumni, to replicate this first workshop in their countries, right? To take it back to their countries. And these participants who demanded the workshop, they also became later in the following events in organizers and in facilitators. And so this first workshop gave place to this series of workshops. So we also have to acknowledge the contribution of 21 organizations and funding, from universities to national and international organizations, like TCD, Nelson Institute from the University of Wisconsin, Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation, Wildlife Conservation Society, among others. And so in 2016, we have to split the team because we have 2 events the same year. And so the second workshop was held in Quito, Ecuador, where Lynn and I went. And kind of this invitation came from Claudia Segovia, who was a TCD alumni, and she participated in the first workshop. So she wanted to replicate the workshop in her country. And so we have 28 participants in this event from 8 countries. And we made this event coincide with another conference. So that was kind of like the key, partner this event as a side event of bigger events. And that event was the International Conference of Wildlife Management in the Amazon and Latin America. And the next month, on September, we have the 3rd workshop in Puerto Iguazú, Argentina, where Marce and Antonieta went. And this demand came from Pauline Estoas. She participated in the first workshop and this idea that that month it was going to be the binational meeting of ecology Argentina-Chile. And so we partnered this workshop to that event. And we have 24 participants from 8 countries. And then in 2018, in Lima, Peru, we have the fourth workshop. This workshop was led by Farah Carrasco, and she didn't participate in the first workshop, but she heard about all of these events that we were having, and she was a TCD alumni, and she got funding from the Bat Conservation International. So she proposed us to replicate the event again there. And so we partnered this with the International Forum of Conservation Experiences and Initiatives in Latin America. And in this event, we got 20 participants from 2 countries, Peru and Ecuador. And so we were invited after these 4 workshops to hold another one. But at that moment, we realized that all the participants have raised most of the same challenges and opportunities across workshops. And so we decided, or we feel the need that we needed to take a step forward, right? Like take action and develop some mechanisms to overcome those identified challenges and capitalize on the identified opportunities. I mean, we didn't see the point on continue replicating this workshop and having kind of the same results. And so the first step for that was to analyze and synthesize the result of the first 4 workshops. And so that resulted in this framework, where you can see it has 4 categories of challenges, which are the rings that intersect with 3 domains in which women operate in the conservation field, which are the petals of the flowers. And all of these happen within the new conservation approach. I don't want to go into detail of the framework, but more detail or more information is on the paper that was shared in the email with the invitation to this talk. And so then we have the 5th workshop that was also held in Lima, Peru. And we partnered this event with the 3rd Conference on Protected Area of Latin America. It was a big, big event. And so we were able to have 60 participants from 15 countries. And what we did here was in a plenary session, we improved the framework and validated by the participants. And this was our final encounter where we used that framework to develop an action agenda that was collectively endorsed by all the participants. So this was an important step. And so here is a picture of the agendas. I'm sorry that is in Spanish, but we don't have yet an English version or a Portuguese version. And so this agenda encompasses a full list of strategies and line of action. It's one of the examples of the many tools that can be developed using our conceptual framework. And it's also a living document, so it's open to feedback and contributions at any time. We have an online form that collects these inputs, so for the next version of the agenda. Our concluded event also culminated in the agenda, but also culminated in a network. The purpose of the network is to support women, right? We have so far 900 women enrolled between workshop participants and other interested women. They fill a form and register in the network. And so most of them are between 31 and 40 years old. And most of them are from Argentina, Chile, Ecuador, and Peru. And it's a diverse group of women. Some of them came from the academia, or another from the public sector, private sector, civil organizations. Some of them are independents. Some of them come from NGOs. Others are activists and defenders of rights. Others are leads of communities. Another group are students. So it's a very diverse group of women. And it's a very active network. We have several activities, workshops, seminars between the pandemic and before we have vaccines. We were having virtual conferences. And now, for example, the network is participating in the COP16 that is being held this week, is ending this week in Cali, Colombia. So it's a very, very active network. And we have several ways that I make open invitations to women here who works in Latin America. So we have a website where you have all of this information. We have a Facebook account, LinkedIn. We have YouTube video for the virtual conference. So yeah, I'd invite you to look at those sites. And I leave Marcela to continue.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't find the the unmute button. Yeah. So thanks, Cristina. Yeah, so we wanted to spread the word to the world because this all these things started from a very tiny snowball, right? Like what we thought it was gonna be one-time event, but it grew so fast into a bigger and bigger snowball, like a monster. So we wanted to publish this somehow to spread the word. So we felt like this, all of this process was like a TCD blender, where we have many ingredients, like first of all, the TCD support and TCD training, of course, motivated grad students, and we also had some NSF funding for the first workshop, and the TCD alumni that push us to do more events. We also had external funding and the enthusiasm of workshop participants, which was huge. So all of this mixed in this blender delivered several outcomes, as Cristina has already told you. First, the workshop series, the conceptual framework for women in conservation, the agenda, and the network. So how we can tell this story to the world and publish this interesting story? So there was a widespread interest in publishing the results, but the challenge here is that there was no formal research design, because we never thought about this as a research. It was like something that happened, right? So that was the first challenge. But we had the IRV from the NSF project, so somehow we had some ethical guidelines to follow that we follow throughout all the events. So that was an opportunity for publication. And in 2020, in 2021, Cristina and I got postdoc funding. So that was perfect because we both could work, got funding and time to write papers, right? So we began drafting a paper, and we were not sure how to present the results because this wasn't formally a research. But suddenly, one time I found a paper that was about collaborative research teams, and it was about lessons learned from a collective experience, and it was focused on the process rather than in the results. So that was perfect because we thought maybe we can change the focus, not focus that much in the results, but in the whole process, which was very interesting, right? So we started working on the article, on the draft. We invited co-authors from the organization committees, but also key collaborators who helped with especially with the concluding encounter in Peru in 2019. And those women that help a lot with the development of the conceptual framework and the analysis of the results. And we presented this in several conferences as well, like in the SCV Latin American section conference that was virtually because of the pandemic, but also in the gender summits and so on. So we were making progress with this narrative and this article. So we decided to pick a journal and see what kind of article types they had. And for example, here is the journal A. We're not going to say the name of the journal, but this journal had letters, which were like formal research articles, reviews, correspondence, viewpoints, and policy perspectives. And under the policy perspectives, they provided a forum for authors to develop ideas with broad and significant policy relevance to conservation. And they are supposed to be forward-looking. So we thought that the policy perspective was a perfect article type for us. So this is a timeline of our journey, which was a little bit long. We started with the first draft. We found it in a Google Drive. It was from December 2019. And during the 2020 and 2021, don't forget that was the pandemic. So it took us a long time, but at least in Chile, the lockdown was very strict. And I was with a toddler at home. My daughter was 12 years, 2 years and a half. And we couldn't go out except to buy stuff with a permit once a week. And no one could come into my house. So my husband and I had to split the day, and I would work during the mornings, and I had to do a full-time job, the postdoc, and everything, full-time job, half day, and the rest of the day I had to take care of my daughter. So we start facing all the challenges we were discussing during the workshops. Finally, and during this period, the article was going back and forth with the co-authors, with John, Caroline, etc. And we submitted the first submission to Journal A in January 6, 2022. Then we didn't hear from them, and we sent a follow-up email 3 months later. Nothing. They said that it was difficult to find reviewers, but they were working on that. And then 5 months later, we sent another follow-up email, and they said, you know what, reviewers are declining to review the manuscript, probably because of the whole pandemic that was very difficult for everyone. So please provide a list of potential reviewers. Okay, so we provide a list of potential reviewers. And finally, 7 months later, in August, we got a decision, and the decision was to reject the article, but with an invitation to resubmit. Okay, so we started working on the revisions, and it took us a long time because of this. We were resuming from the pandemic. I was very tired, and with the lockdown and everything, too many things going on. So we submitted a second version of the article in April 2023. And then we didn't hear anything for 3 months. We sent a follow-up email, and the next day they sent us the decision that the manuscript was rejected, but with an invitation to resubmit. And that was our face. And the reviews were weird because they seemed to be another set of reviewers than the first revision. So they wanted to see things that the other reviewers said that we should take that out. And also there were some comments very biased, especially from one of the reviewers, saying, but this is nothing new. You know what? Including gender equity and gender perspective in conservation projects it's been done for the last 10 years. And my co-authors and I were like, what? Are you serious? In Latin America? It's not happening, my dear, it's not happening. So we start the discussion and mails coming back and forth with the co-authors. What are we gonna do? So we also felt like the editor in charge of our article wasn't fair with her decision or his decision. So we reached out to the editor of the journal, and we sent him an email explaining that we thought that the revision was biased. And he took it very well. He replied saying that he apologized in the name of the journal. He didn't see the comments as biased until we explained it to him. So he was very nice. But despite that, we decided to change to another journal, because what was the chance to submit it again and be rejected again with an invitation to resubmit? So no, thank you. So we changed and we decided to submit the article to Biological Conservation. And at that time, I was so frustrated and tired that Cristina said, you know what, maybe I can put more effort and help you lead this, and we can share first authorship. Because I didn't know that you could do that. And it's possible to share first authorship. So then Cristina jumped in board, like with much more energy, or no, with the same energy, but we were partners in this, and we were not gonna we're not gonna let this not happen. So we really wanted to see this out there published. So we submit this third version of the article to the Biological Conservation, and 3 months later they said, we like the article, but you need to address these comments, and it's between major and minor revision. So we addressed those comments and we submitted it again. And finally, in April, at the end of April this year, they accepted the manuscript for publication. So what we learned from the process? Well, the first challenge we faced, and this is, I would say, the most mentioned and common challenge discussed across the whole workshops, is to balance family and personal time with professional responsibilities. And here is a picture of me that Cristina found it last week. And this was during the pandemic, and I was having a meeting with Cristina, Claudia, Antonieta to discussing the article. And while I was in the meeting, listening to the girls, I was cleaning up the bathroom, and probably my husband was taking care of my daughter and cooking or doing something like that. Soon after, I realized that wasn't a good idea to do two things at the same time. It was better to focus on one thing. But it was the biggest challenge, to balance all we had to do, taking care of our beloved ones. In the case of Cristina, it was her mom and her mom-in-law, but also doing our postdoc projects and other professional responsibilities, and writing up this article and addressing the revisions. So what we did, they were very small steps, but they help us a lot. For example, the weekly meetings. So we met every meeting. It was sacred to meet that every week, 1 hour, despite the progress we have done. So if we couldn't have done anything, we still meet that hour and we make progress that hour. We set clear and realistic meeting outcomes. So every meeting we knew what we were supposed to do during that hour. And we were flexible to rearrange the meetings in case we need so. And of course, we use Zoom and all the technology, we share screen, and the Google Drive was essential to make progress. So the lesson learned to this challenge is to adapt to this context, adapt to the context, since we were resuming from pandemic, and also doing these small steps.
And may I jump, Marcela? May I add something?
Sure.
And so we will, can you go there? So we will rearrange meetings, but we will do it within the same week. So we will not skip any week. And so we will say, okay, next Tuesday, so we meet always Tuesday. So next Tuesday, Marcela, we do this and you will do that. And so we will meet them that Tuesday, and probably I didn't do it or Marcela didn't do it. So we will do it during that hour of the meeting. And so we will make at least a little bit of progress, but we will make sure every week we make progress, because time passes really fast and you lose track a little bit. And so that way we knew we were making progress every week.
Yeah, and sometimes it was really fun and exciting what we were doing, that after the meeting, I kept working on the paper because of that meeting, because it was fun and yes, we need to do this, yes. So that weekly meeting was essential. And the other challenge we faced is to overcome the frustration of the almost never-ending publishing process. And for that challenge, having Cristina by my side, working together was essential for motivation and support. So we were both in that boat. And also the support in the writing process and decision-making from the co-authors. So we were always in touch with the co-authors, and that was very helpful as well.
And may I add something? Sorry, Marcela. So I feel like, so jumping as a sharing this first co-authorship, I will lead or take off Marcela a lot of weight, right? So sometimes she wouldn't have time to write an email to the journal. So I will just, because she was the correspondent author, so I will just write a draft for her to send it. And so we will like keep, oh, can you do that? Oh, I do have, and then you finish it. And so we will like really sharing the task, and I lifted a lot of weight, I feel, from Marcela, because she felt so overwhelmed by this long, very process, and having 2 rejections wasn't easy. And so, yeah, that's it. I'm sorry, Marcela.
Yeah, so the lesson learned for this challenge, it was the power of collaboration. Yeah, and asking for help to the co-authors as well. So for example, Lynn, John, Karen were super helpful with the grammar, reducing the number of words. Antonieta was essential to ask her about the conceptual framework and how it was developed, and about the agendas, because she was in almost all of the workshops. And Claudia and Farah, they were super helpful looking for literature and etc. So everyone did a great job helping us. So for the manuscript, a little bit about the results. So as we mentioned before, well, we found out that there were 3 big challenges. At the personal level, as I was telling you, how to balance the work and personal life. Also, the high personal expectations women have, and self-awareness and self-esteem. Regarding social expectations, we have the stereotypes, being heard, empowering other women, and promoting mentorship and leadership. And in terms of professional challenges, it was very important to securing a fulfilling job. That's a very important challenge. continuing professional development, doing this collaborative and interdisciplinary work, and improving teamwork. And there were challenges that were transversal, like breaking patriarchal structures, deconstructing stereotypes, and eradicating physical and psychological violence, but also opportunities such as the historical moment of feminist fight, and some progress that is done in terms of labor, sexual, and reproductive rights, and the existence of networks. So all these challenges and results were synthesized in this flower. But we decided to talk and to hire a company called Pen and Paper Illustration, and they help us to improve the flower. So here you can see that the domains in which women in conservation work are separated. So it may happen that a women scientist, for example, that works in conservation science can also do some policy making, or she can work and do some practical work in the territory. So it wasn't the ideal visualization to have these domains separated. So they help us to have this all these domains with intersections and the challenges in the base of the flower. And also we started throughout this work with the art company, we started to questioning some things in the conceptual framework. So it was very useful to do this visualization, because we started questioning about what is this new conservation focus? Is it in the middle, or could it be outside as well? So it was very interesting, the exercise, to think theoretically about what we were writing. Well, at the end, this beautiful flower doesn't show up. It's not in the manuscript because some of the reviewers were hesitant, and we decided to take it out to avoid another rejection. But it's there to make to do outreach about the paper and things like that.
Can I say something, Marce? So I think that the big challenge is that we show this flower in a 2D dimension, in 2 dimensions, and it should be actually in a 3-dimensional, because here it seems like the first domain, resources management and local actor agency, doesn't intersect with planning and policymaker, with the last one, with the last petal. And so it's very difficult to put it in a 2-dimension illustration.
Exactly.
And so so we decided to take it out of the publication.
Yeah. And so to finish, we wanted to share some quotes from the participants of the workshops with you. For instance, participating in these workshops made me realize the true power of women: create, nurture, and transform. And also that it was an amazing experience to be with all those incredible women and see how a group of strangers became a group of empowered women ready to change the world. And it's very soon to say something about the impact of the paper, but some students have reached out to me saying that they have really liked the article, that they want to write another one. And the other day, for example, a student came to me and say, I don't know what to do. I feel like I don't know where to go. I really like conservation, but I don't know if you can, I want to have a family, so I don't know if I can have a family and work in conservation and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, here is this paper, you can read. Because those are all the challenges you may face, and it's possible. I mean, we are in the same boat with you, so we can do it. So I think, yeah, I think it's gonna be very useful to share this with other people and women out there that are thinking that it's not possible or it's difficult and they feel alone. So thank you. I don't know if you have questions or comments.
So before we go to questions, I would like to add that this is a process, or the way that we organize ourselves. It was the way that worked for us. So I mean, we don't pretend to show like a successful recipe. I mean, there might be pieces that might work from some students, but this is what worked for us because we were kind of like in countries where they had similar time zones. We had to work virtually. And Marcela and I are very organized. And so we work well with Google Drives and documents. And so this is something that, as I said, work for us. And so you are welcome to copy this recipe, but we don't pretend to present it as the successful recipe for everyone.